Welcome, Rishika.
Thank you so much, Anjana, and hi everyone. So exciting to be here today.
Rishika, before I hand over the session to you, I have a very special announcement to make. The Global Annual Women's Economic Forum confers on you the Exceptional Leader of Excellence Award.
Thank you so much.
This is a digital award, and we will be emailing it to you within 2 weeks.
Sounds great.
Okay, now over to you, Rishika. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anjana, and hi everyone who has joined in today. So, as rightly pointed out, I am going to be talking about how diversity and inclusion can happen from the top down, and look forward to sharing some of my insights from the work that I have been doing so far. Diversity and inclusion have become buzzwords for organizations across the globe. Everyone seems to be wanting to hire diverse talent, or at the very least, write a note at the end of their job descriptions, which usually say something along the lines of them being an equal opportunity employer who do not discriminate on the basis of a candidate's gender, sexual orientation, caste, religion, disability, race, amongst other such similar categories. What always fascinates me when I come across such job postings, however, is that despite these promises, women's participation in the workforce remains to be as low as 21% in India. Most organizations continue to only use a gender lens to look at D&I, and in that process, miss out on the chance of incorporating diverse voices from different socio-cultural, economic, or political backgrounds. And while it's absolutely important that companies continue using a gender lens, this also makes me wonder if, despite the use of this lens, women's participation is as low as it is, how are we going to make workplaces truly diverse and inclusive for all individuals who come from these various different backgrounds? What we lack, I believe, in our efforts towards expanding diversity and being inclusive is an intersectional approach. When it comes to D&I, we are so caught up in encouraging a culture of compliance that we forget to address the core of the issue. But before we dive into talking about D&I using an intersectional approach, let me quickly give you an understanding of how I see intersectionality. It's an analytical framework which recognizes the overlapping inequalities that an individual faces due to their socio-cultural, economic, and or political status. So, for example, while we talk about women's empowerment, we need to recognize that women are not a homogeneous category either. Every woman is different and is placed differently within a society or a community. Every woman faces different types of struggles in their everyday life, some that go beyond their gender and are based on their caste, class, sexual orientation, race, etc. So, if we can use intersectionality as a central tool in our D&I efforts, we can recognize these overlaps of discrimination and simultaneously acknowledge our privilege as well. While ensuring diversity is the first step towards achieving equality, to further create a culture of inclusion, we need to understand our privilege as well as our biases to make space for those who are left out. We must learn, teach, and encourage those around us to pass the mic. It's not a surprise that most of the inequalities generated at a societal level travels to the workplace as well. Given that the individuals who are a part of this society are also the ones who make up these workplaces, the correlation between the two is inevitable. We carry our personal biases to our workplaces as well. And that's why, when it comes to encouraging diversity and inclusion, we must understand that these efforts need to be systemic and holistic and go beyond monthly trainings for employees and those in leadership positions. To take a systemic approach to diversity, let's look at biases, both conscious and unconscious. Human beings continue learning and unlearning their understanding of a subject as they interact with their social surroundings and consequently learn to understand the self in negation to the other. As we move forward, our biases sometimes get stronger and sometimes we manage to break free from them. And let me also explain this by giving you an example from the United States of America from the 1970s, where very few women were making it to the orchestras. So in order to experiment with blind recruitment and also to check their own personal biases, the orchestra started putting screens between the judges and the musicians who were auditioning. As a result, the judges could not see the candidate who was playing the instrument, but could only hear what they were playing. The initial results showed that the judges, in fact, did not showcase any such gender biases. Even with the screens, it was mostly the men who were still getting recruited. However, things got interesting when the auditioners were asked to remove their shoes. This small change proved to have a drastic impact on the results, with a larger percentage of women who auditioned getting hired. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But the sound of women's heels when they walked onto that stage was what was making the judges think in a certain manner, without even realizing their own bias. Unconscious biases work in extremely subtle ways and need a lot of work and willingness to break free from. So when it comes to diversity at the workplace and the importance of taking a top-down approach to D&I, it's important to recognize that every individual within a workplace would have their own set of biases which need to be addressed. Just merely tackling the issue of lack of diversity at a workplace will not automatically create a culture of inclusion. So what is diversity and what is inclusion? If we are able to deconstruct these two very different yet closely interlinked words, especially for those in the leadership positions, we can create a trickle-down effect that can ensure D&I practices across organization from the top to the bottom. And let's talk about what exactly diversity is. Diversity, in the most basic sense of the word, means variety. It can be understood as the representation of varied or diverse set of individuals, traits, and experiences within a given context. Findings from some of the recent studies have highlighted why diversity at the workplace is something that organizations, and more specifically those in leadership positions, should start taking more seriously. According to a survey conducted by Glassdoor, 67% of job seekers consider workplace diversity an important factor when considering employment opportunities. The same survey also highlights that more than 50% of current employees want their workplace to do more to increase diversity. Another study conducted by Harvard Business School also showcased that 78% of the total number of employees felt that the organizations that they work in lacked diversity at the leadership level. Some other studies have also shown that companies that have more women in leadership positions consistently outperform companies with less than half of their leadership positions filled by women. But even if we keep these facts on the side for a minute, imagine the amount of growth and impact that an organization can achieve if they incorporate diverse perspectives on a single issue compared to an otherwise homogeneous conclusion. When we take everyone's opinions into account and create a balance between all those perspectives, we can truly come to a conclusion that could benefit all of us collectively and have a larger impact on our growth. And now, if we move on to understanding what we mean by inclusion, let's imagine that we have an organization that is diverse and has individuals who belong to different socio-cultural backgrounds. But is that enough? Experts around the globe have been highlighting how efforts to create a diverse organization will always be redundant without understanding the importance of inclusion. In order to retain this diversity, it's essential that organizations ensure that everyone feels included. Inclusion is the feeling of belongingness. All of us constantly strive to feel like we belong to a group, a community, or even a country. We form our identities on the basis of which group makes us feel included. When an individual feels that they belong, they move away from understanding those around them as the other to their self. And to create a meaningful and long-lasting impact, and to further create a culture of inclusion within an organization, efforts to understand the importance of including the other in the self has to come from the top management. They have to take on the responsibility of making everyone feel included and heard. And the question then is, how do we achieve this? To start with, D&I efforts by organizations should recognize the potential of reinforcing the dichotomy between us versus the diverse them. It's essential that we understand that just hiring diverse talent is not the solution. If we are to make an impact, inclusion must stay at the fore to retain these diverse voices within an organization. There are multiple ways in which leaders can start working on themselves and those around them to create a culture of inclusion, which prioritizes the incorporation of these diverse perspectives. Firstly, D&I practices need to start from the top management, who must constantly recognize their own conscious and unconscious biases, as well as the biases that persist within their team to actively address them. People rarely discriminate against others intentionally, and therefore it's even more important to help them recognize their biases to ensure inclusivity. Secondly, those in the leadership positions must provide open space for feedback and discussions where they ensure that they incorporate the voices of each and every employee that is present, especially the ones who may not be comfortable in speaking up in front of an entire group. Leaders can also incorporate what's known as the SCARF model in their approach and gradually help their employees sensitize themselves according to it as well. SCARF, which is the short for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness, is a model that can allow leaders to ensure this feeling of belongingness. By being mindful of this model, the leaders can help individuals feel valued and like they belong, that they are treated fairly and with respect, that they have a safe and open space to voice their opinions or perspectives, and finally, that they can constantly grow personally and professionally by feeling empowered at their workplace. The SCARF model can be used as an inclusion model for organizations to ensure diverse hiring, retention of talent, and the well-being of their employees through inclusive practices. Organizations can put in an extra effort to understand the needs of their employees and be willing to change their approach where needed. For instance, infrastructural changes like creation of toilets for non-binary individuals or ramps for individuals with locomotor disabilities can also help the employees feel more welcomed. The top management should ensure that across their organization, a language of inclusion is advocated for. This not only prevents the othering of groups and individuals, but also creates a safer and warm work culture where every individual within the organization can thrive and grow. Finally, understanding that we cannot know everything and that we may unintentionally other an individual can go a long way in creating an inclusive culture. Everyone within an organization must necessarily learn how to be better allies to those who belong to a marginalized group by recognizing their own privilege. The leaders should be mindful of those around them and move beyond the dichotomy between self and the other. They should prioritize the need to foster belongingness by giving people the space to be themselves and voice their opinions. So if we can learn how to celebrate these differences and incorporate them in our understanding of ourselves, we will eventually be able to create collaborative communities that are inclusive of diverse perspectives. As has also been proven through existing data, the more the perspectives, the better the results. So what exactly are we waiting for? Let's go back to keep a check on our own biases and put in an effort to talk to those who do not hold the same opinions as us. And this time, instead of othering them, let's try and really listen to what they're saying without thinking about what we would want to say next. Thank you so much.